Have you ever had someone look you dead in the eye, swear up and down they've got everything under control, and then months later try to shove the blame for a $4.8 million disaster straight onto you? What if I told you I saw it coming weeks ahead of time, warned him 7 different ways, and when he finally came crawling back, I had already quietly behind his back saved the entire company? And the very best part? The day he got marched out of the building with a single cardboard box while grown men pretended not to watch, I was the one who made sure the money still came in. Stick with me till the end, because this is the slowest, sweetest, most perfectly served plate of justice you'll ever hear. Hit subscribe and ring that bell to keep in touch. My name's Maggie, I've been a lawyer for 31 years, and what you're about to hear actually happened to me. Only the names, the dates, and a few zeros have been changed to protect the not-so-innocent. Grab something cozy, settle in, and let me take you back 8 winters ago. To the day I met the most infuriating client of my entire career. Let me take you back, way back, to when I was 25 years old, still wet behind the ears, sitting in a smoky little office in upstate New York across from a grizzled old lion of a lawyer named Harold J. Whitaker. Harry had liver spots on his hands, a voice like gravel soaked in bourbon, and eyes that had seen every dirty trick in the book twice. One afternoon he leaned over his desk, pointed a crooked finger right between my eyes, and said words I have never forgotten. "Margaret, listen close. A lawyer has 3 duties and you write these on the inside of your eyelids. Number 1, to yourself. Number 2, to the court. Number 3, dead last, to the client. Because clients, sweetheart clients, will smile at you on Friday and throw you under the city bus on Monday without spilling their coffee." I laughed because I was young and invincible and thought I could charm anybody into doing the right thing. Harry didn't laugh. He just tapped the ashes off his cigarette and said, "One day you'll thank me, kid. And on that day, some son of a bitch in a cheap suit will be crying because you remembered." Fast forward 31 years. I'm 56 years old, still downtown, still fighting, silver streak in my hair now, and Harry's been dead for 12 years. But guess whose voice I heard in my head the day Victor Langford decided he knew better than me? Victor Langford. 62 years old, cheap cologne, cheaper ties, and the smug little smirk of a man who'd been coasting on the same job since the Clinton administration. Victor was the director of risk management for Westbridge Holdings, a privately owned real estate empire that wasn't quite big enough to be famous, but was absolutely big enough to lose millions in one afternoon. Victor had one superpower and only one. He could squeeze a nickel so hard the buffalo screamed. Every invoice I ever sent him came back bleeding red ink. "Really, Margaret? 3/10 of an hour to review a 2-page letter." He'd call me at 4:58 p.m. on a Friday just to brag that he'd saved the company another $800 by not retaining counsel on something he clearly didn't understand. I put up with it because Westbridge paid eventually, and because I'm a professional. But Lord, there were afternoons I'd hang up the phone, stare at the ceiling and whisper, "Harry, you were right. They really will do it." And then came the winter, everything went up in flames, literally. Which is exactly where this story catches fire, pardon the pun. Because 8 winters ago, one cold February morning, a 7-story commercial building on the edge of the city burned to the ground. Westbridge owned it free and clear. The insurance policy on it? For $0.8 million. And Victor Langford, the man who thought lawyers were an unnecessary expense, decided he was going to handle the claim all by himself. Little did he know he'd just lit the fuse on the last 18 months of his entire career. And handed me the match. "We're just getting warmed up, darlin'. In just a moment you're going to meet Victor in all his glory. And I promise you by the time I'm done, you'll want to reach through the screen and shake him yourself." Picture this. A man who walks into every room like he's doing the room a favor. Hair plugs that don't quite match the rest of his head. A pinky ring that catches the light every single time he waves a finger in your face. And a voice. Oh honey, that voice like a dentist's drill wrapped in fake velvet. Victor Langford, 62 going on 16, thought the height of sophistication was ordering the usual at Applebee's and bragging that he'd never paid a parking ticket in his life because he knows people. He kept a little notebook, yes, an actual paper notebook, where he wrote down every dime he saved the company by not hiring experts. He'd flash it at board meetings like it was the Dead Sea Scrolls. And me? I was just Maggie from legal, the overpriced lady lawyer he loved to keep waiting on hold while he finished his sandwich. The day the building burned down, I only found out because Victor let it slip during one of our monthly "How can I shave another 20% off your bill this quarter?" calls. Oh, by the way, he said, mouthful of tuna salad, we had a little fire. Nothing to worry about. Insurance will cover it. My stomach dropped so hard I heard it hit the floor. Victor, I said, trying to keep my voice level, how big a fire are we talking? Total loss, he chuckled. But I've got this. The adjuster and I are practically golf buddies. I closed my eyes and saw Harry's ghost nodding sadly in the corner. Victor, send me the policy and the proof of loss form today. Do not talk to the carrier again until I've reviewed everything. Silence. Then the smirk I could hear through the phone. Margaret, sweetheart, I've been handling claims since before you were out of law school. I think I'll manage. Sweetheart. He called me sweetheart. I felt my jaw lock so tight I tasted metal. Victor, these people are not your buddies. They are a multi-billion-dollar machine whose entire business model is paying you as little as possible, as late as possible, preferably never. You need counsel on this. Now. He actually laughed. A wet, dismissive little laugh that made the hairs on my arms stand up. Lawyers are why insurance costs so much in the first place, he said. I'm saving the company a fortune here. You'll thank me later. I hung up, stared at my reflection in the black computer screen, and whispered to Harry's ghost. He's going to do it. He's really going to do it. Over the next 6 weeks I watched Victor march straight toward a cliff, whistling the whole way. Every time we spoke he had a new story about how smooth everything was going. The adjuster says we're golden. They just need one more report. They're cutting the check any day now. Meanwhile, I could see the carrier doing exactly what carriers do. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. Endless requests. Delays. Radio silence for weeks at a time. And every time I begged him, yes, begged, to let me file suit before the limitation period ran out, he patted me on the head long distance and told me to calm down. I sent emails in bold red caps. I left voicemails that would make a sailor blush. I even had my assistant call and pretend it was urgent just to get him on the phone. Nothing. Because Victor Langford was going to prove that a 62-year-old paper pusher from the suburbs was smarter than a 31-year veteran lawyer. And folks, when someone is that determined to humiliate themselves, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is hand them the shovel and step back. But I didn't step all the way back. Not quite. Because what Victor never knew, what nobody knew until it was way too late for him, was that Harry's rule number 1 was ringing in my ears like church bells on Sunday. And rule number 1 says, protect yourself first. We're about to watch Victor dig his own grave one smug phone call at a time. And I haven't even told you about the 72-hour countdown that made my heart nearly stop. By the middle of April, the 2-year limitation clock wasn't just ticking. It was screaming. I had it circled in red on 3 different calendars, a sticky note on my monitor, and an alarm on my phone that went off every single morning with the words, Do not let Victor kill you us both. 72 hours to go. I called him on a Tuesday at 8:07 a.m. He let it ring 8 times, then finally picked up sounding like he'd just rolled out of a hammock. Victor, it's Maggie. The limitation period expires Friday at midnight. After that, the insurance company owns you. They will laugh, delete your emails, and you personally will be explaining to the board why Westbridge just ate a $4.8 million loss. Tell me you're letting me file the claim today. I heard the rustle of a newspaper and the slow, deliberate sip of coffee. Margaret, Margaret, Margaret. He sighed like I was a child who'd asked for ice cream before dinner. You worry too much. Rich and I had lunch with the senior adjuster last week. 18 holes at Pine Valley. The man practically promised me the check is in process. Rich Donovan was in-house counsel, and the fact Victor was name-dropping him like a human shield made my eye twitch. Victor, I said, and my voice dropped so low my assistant looked up from across the room. Rich is not the one who loses his job when the board finds out you let a $5 million claim die. You are. Give me the go-ahead right now, or I swear on everything holy I will document every single time you ignored me. He actually chuckled. Document away, sweetheart. When that check lands next month, you'll be eating crow with a side of humble pie. I hung up, heart hammering so hard I had to sit down. 48 hours to go. I sent the final email at 4:42 p.m. on Wednesday. Subject line in all caps. Final warning. Limitation expires in 52 hours. Authorize suit today or lose everything. Inside were copies of every ignored email, every voicemail transcript, every dire prediction I'd made for the last 6 months. I CC'd nobody yet. Victor never replied. 24 hours to go. Thursday morning I was in my office before the cleaning crew left. I stared at the complaint I had already drafted. Rough, ugly, missing details, but enough to stop the clock. Filing it without instructions is the kind of thing that gets lawyers disbarred, sued, ruined. I could hear Harry's voice clear as day. Protect yourself first, kid. At 3:17 p.m. on Thursday I did the thing you're never, ever supposed to do. I walked to the courthouse alone. I paid the filing fee out of my own pocket. I handed the clerk the complaint against the insurance company. And I put Westbridge Holdings as plaintiff and Margaret Callahan as counsel of record. Then I went back to my office, poured 2 fingers of the good scotch I keep for closings and funerals, and waited for the explosion I knew was coming. Friday midnight came and went. Saturday morning I left for a 3-week jury trial in another county. Phone on airplane mode. Out of reach. And Victor? Victor woke up Monday morning to an email from the adjuster that probably looks something like this. Dear Mr. Langford, regret to inform you the statute of limitations has expired. Claim is time-barred. Have a nice life. I didn't know that yet, but I knew it was coming. And somewhere in the quiet of my hotel room 100 miles away, I raised a silent toast to Harry Whitaker, because for the first time in 31 years, I had broken every rule in the book to follow the only one that ever mattered. Coming up, you're going to hear the phone call that made me almost drop my coffee in the courthouse hallway. And the lie so big, so brazen it would cost Victor everything he'd spent 40 years building. 3 weeks later I'm walking out of court after a brutal day of trial. Heels clicking on marble, trial bag slung over my shoulder like a battle-scarred soldier. My phone finally has signal again. 47 missed calls. 31 voicemails. All from the same number, Victor Langford. I'm thinking, well, somebody's check didn't clear. I hit callback, lean against a cold courthouse pillar and wait. He picks up on the first ring, voice trembling like a leaf in November. Maggie. Thank God. Listen about that fire claim. I cut him off ice calm. Let me guess, Victor. The carrier finally sent you the sorry you're too late kiss-off letter. How many millions are we out now? Silence so thick I could spread it on toast. Then the performance of his lifetime begins. See, here's the thing, he says, all fake cheer. I told you repeatedly to sue. I was very clear. I kept asking for a copy of the filed complaint and you never sent it. So when the limitation ran, I just assumed you dropped the ball. Totally understandable mistake on your part, but now the board is breathing down my neck, and I need you to forward me the claim you filed so I can show them we're covered. I swear the courthouse pillar cracked behind me. I have never in 31 years wanted to reach through a phone and throttle someone so badly. Victor, I said, slow and quiet, the way you talk right before you ruin somebody's whole life. You are telling me that you are planning to walk into a boardroom and swear, under oath if necessary, that you instructed me to sue and I ignored you? Exactly, he chirps, relieved I'm getting it. Human error. Happens to the best of us. Just shoot me the lawsuit file and we'll put this ugly business behind us. I closed my eyes and saw Harry smiling down from wherever cranky old lawyers go when they die. Victor, I whispered. Check your inbox. I just sent you something. I hung up, fingers flying across my phone. Subject line. For when you lie to the board today, please read in full attachment. Every single ignored email, every voicemail transcript, every red cap warning, time-stamped and unedited. And at the very bottom in bold 18-point font. If a single word of this file appears in front of the board without my written consent, I will be forced to correct the record in person with pleasure. I hit send. CC Richard Donovan, in-house counsel. BCC the CEO, the CFO, and the chairman of the board. Because Harry taught me one other thing. When someone tries to throw you under the bus, you don't dodge, you blow the tires out. 2 minutes later my phone lit up again. This time it was Rich Donovan. Maggie, he said, voice low. What in the fresh hell did Victor just try to do? Rich, I answered. Your boy just tried to sell me up the river to save his own backside. I just gave him a paddle made of dynamite. Rich exhaled like a man who'd been holding his breath for 6 months. Get in here tomorrow morning, he said. And Maggie, thank you for the paper trail. You may have just saved all of us. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Rich, I told him, you have no idea what I just saved you from. Because what Rich didn't know yet, what nobody knew yet, was that 3 weeks ago, on that Thursday afternoon when the clock was bleeding out, I didn't just send emails. I filed the lawsuit, without instructions, against every rule in the book. And the stamped copy was sitting in my safe, waiting for its curtain call. Next, you're going to be in the room when Victor walks into the boardroom thinking he's got the perfect scapegoat, and watches 31 years of my warnings get projected one by one onto a 75-inch screen while grown men turn the color of skim milk. The next morning I walked into Westbridge Holdings like I owned the place. Navy suit pressed sharp enough to cut glass. Silver hair twisted into the tightest bun I've ever worn. Heels that announced me 10 seconds before I ever opened my mouth. Rich Donovan met me at reception, face grim, eyes already apologizing. Maggie, they've got Victor in the main boardroom right now. CEO, CFO, the chairman, outside forensic accountants, the whole circus. He's been in there 45 minutes spinning the lawyer dropped the ball story. They asked me to bring you in for clarification. I gave him the smallest, sweetest smile I own. Rich, honey, clarification is exactly what I'm here to deliver. We stepped into that boardroom and time slowed down like a movie. 22 people around a table long enough to land a plane on. 75-inch screen glowing on the far wall. And there at the very end sat Victor Langford, tie askew, sweat shining at his temples, holding a laser pointer like it was a life raft. He saw me and the color drained out of him so fast I thought he'd vanish. The chairman, 71 years old, former Marine, voice like a gravel driveway, didn't even look up from his notepad. Miss Callahan, Mr. Langford tells us you were instructed repeatedly to commence litigation before the limitation period expired, and that you failed to do so. He has expressed profound disappointment in your services. I set my briefcase on the table with a soft, deliberate click that sounded louder than gunfire in that silent room. Mr. Chairman, I said, voice warm as Sunday dinner, I'm not here to express disappointment. I'm here to play a little movie for the class. I nodded to Rich. He dimmed the lights. I opened the file I preloaded onto the presentation laptop labeled Victor's Greatest Hits Volume 1. Slide 1 came up. March 14th email, 7:42 a.m. Subject. Urgent. Authorize suit today or lose $4.8 million. My words in black and white. Bold red caps. Do not let this expire. Victor's reply 11 minutes later. All good, Maggie. Adjuster says we're golden. Stand down. Slide 2. April 3rd voicemail transcript time-stamped. Victor's voice word for word. Quit panicking, sweetheart. I've got this handled. 23 slides later, 23 documented warnings. The room was so quiet you could hear people breathing through their mouths. The CFO, a woman who once made a Fortune 500 CEO cry in a deposition, finally spoke. Victor, she said softly, is there any part of the last 6 months you'd like to revise? Victor opened his mouth. Nothing came out except a small squeak. I wasn't done. I clicked to the final slide. A scanned copy of the summons and complaint, file stamped by the court clerk on Thursday, April 18th at 3:47 p.m., 6 hours before the limitation period died. Title of proceeding: Westbridge Holdings vs. Northern Star Insurance Council of Record. Margaret E. Callahan. I let that sit on the screen for 5 full seconds while $75,000 worth of eyes swung from the date to Victor's face and back again. Then I turned to the chairman and delivered the line I'd practiced in the mirror all night. Gentleman, lady, what Victor Langford is experiencing right now is commonly referred to in the trade as death by email. I don't recommend it. The chairman closed his folder with a sound like a coffin lid. Miss Callahan, he said, please remain available. We may need you to continue prosecuting the claim. Victor tried to stand up. His knees betrayed him. He sat back down hard. Security was already waiting outside the door. 2 gentlemen in navy blazers who didn't smile. But that part comes next, and it is the single most delicious 30 seconds I have ever witnessed in 40 years on this earth. They didn't fire Victor in the boardroom. That would have been too merciful. Instead, the chairman looked at his watch, old Rolex, the kind you inherit, not buy, and said almost gently, Victor, human resources would like a word. Richard will escort you. Rich Donovan stood up, face carved from stone, and opened the boardroom door. 2 security officers were already waiting. Big guys, polite smiles, hands resting easy on their belts. One of them was holding a single white banker's box, lid already off like they'd done this dance before. Victor tried to speak. The chairman simply raised one finger. That finger shut Victor up faster than a gavel. They let him gather his own things. That was the cruelest part. First, the framed photo of his wife and grandkids, taken at some overpriced resort in Cancun. Then the little brass nameplate that read Victor R. Langford, Director, Risk Management. He had to unscrew it himself with trembling fingers while 22 people pretended to check emails. Then the coffee mug that said, "World's okayest golfer." Then the stress ball shaped like a $sign, ironic now. Each item dropped into that box with a soft, pathetic thud that echoed like gunshots in the silence. When the box was half full, one of the security officers quietly closed the lid and tucked it under his arm. Victor looked around for his laptop bag. The other officer held up an empty evidence bag and shook his head. Company property. All of it stays. They formed up like a military detail. One officer in front, one behind. Rich Donovan walking point like the world's saddest drum major. And then they opened the door to the 14th floor. 14 floors of open-plan cubicles stretched out in front of us. 400 people who had spent 25 years kissing Victor's ring or ducking his temper. The second that door swung wide, every phone in the place went silent. Keyboards stopped clicking. Coffee cups froze halfway to lips. Victor took his first step into the hallway, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. You could actually see the ripple move across the floor. Heads popping up over cubicle walls like prairie dogs, eyes wide, mouths forming perfect little O's. Somebody whispered, "Holy hell, they're boxing him out." Victor tried to square his shoulders, tried to walk like a man who still had a corner office and a parking spot with his name on it. But his legs wouldn't cooperate. His wingtips scuffed the carpet like a kid being marched to the principal. Halfway down the aisle, past accounting, past facilities, past the interns who used to fetch his dry cleaning, Victor's eyes started to shine. Not anger. Not yet. Just pure animal panic. A woman he'd screamed at for using the wrong font on a report 6 years ago stood up slowly and watched him go by without blinking. A guy from IT, the one Victor had threatened to fire for wasting company time on March Madness brackets, lifted his phone and started recording, not even pretending to hide it. By the time they reached the elevators, Victor was crying openly. Silent, shoulder-shaking sobs that made the security officer holding the box shift uncomfortably. The elevator dinged. Doors slid open. Victor turned just once and looked back down that long gauntlet of faces. 400 people, and not one of them would meet his eyes. He stepped inside. The doors closed. And that, my darlings, was the last time Victor Langford ever set foot in the building he'd ruled like a little tin god for 25 years. In the final chapter, I'm going to tell you what happened 6 months later when the insurance company finally cut the check for $4.80 million, and who never saw a single penny of it. Plus the brand new director of risk management who still sends me flowers every single Valentine's Day. Just to say thank you. Take a deep breath with me because we're crossing the finish line now. And everything from here on tastes like warm caramel and pure, unfiltered justice. 6 months have passed since Victor's long walk to the elevator. Westbridge Holdings is still standing, the insurance company is sweating bullets, and I'm the one holding every single card in the deck. The complaint I filed that desperate Thursday afternoon, rough, half-finished and technically risky, has grown into a beautiful, terrifying monster of a lawsuit. Discovery requests the size of phone books. Motions that make junior defense lawyers cry into their lattes. And every time Northern Star Insurance tries to wiggle, I just smile and add another zero to the costs column. They finally realized they weren't dealing with Victor and his golf buddy fantasies anymore. They were dealing with Margaret Callahan, 31 years in the pit, and I fight like a woman who has absolutely nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Settlement talks started at $2 million. I laughed so hard the mediator asked if I needed water. We landed at $4.8 million plus interest plus every penny of legal costs. Full policy limits. A check so big it had to be hand-delivered by 2 senior vice presidents and a notary. The day it arrived, Rich Donovan, now acting director of risk management, met me in the lobby with a grin wider than the Hudson. "Maggie," he said, "the board wants to do this right. They're having a little ceremony upstairs. Champagne, the whole deal. They'd like you there when we deposit this thing." I looked at the check in his hand. $4.8 million payable to Westbridge Holdings, and felt something loosen in my chest I didn't even know had been knotted for 31 years. Upstairs, the same boardroom where Victor's career had died 6 months earlier was now decorated like New Year's Eve. Gold balloons. A sheet cake that read, "Thank you, Maggie," in navy blue icing. The chairman himself popped the cork and poured me the first glass. Then he cleared his throat and did something I never expected. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "before we toast, I want to say this out loud so there's no misunderstanding. Westbridge Holdings is whole today because one person in this room refused to let arrogance and ego destroy us. Margaret Callahan didn't just save $4.8 million. She saved this company's reputation, its future, and quietly, the jobs of every single person on the 14th floor. So this toast isn't to the money. It's to the woman who put her entire career on the line to protect people who didn't always deserve protecting." Every eye in that room turned to me. I felt the tears start, hot, fast, impossible to hide. And for just a second, I saw Harry Whitaker standing in the corner, raising an invisible glass with that crooked grin of his. They handed me a plaque that day, heavy walnut, brass plate, that still sits on my desk. For extraordinary loyalty above and beyond the call of duty, Westbridge Holdings, forever grateful. But the real gift came 3 weeks later. A courier showed up at my office with a florist box the size of a small coffin. Inside, 3 dozen long-stem red roses and a card in handwriting I didn't recognize at first. "Dear Maggie, you won't believe this, but I got Victor's old job. The board said they wanted someone who actually listens to counsel. First order of business. Your retainer just doubled, and from now on your invoices are approved the same day they land. Thank you for teaching all of us what real professionalism looks like. P.S. The roses will keep coming every February 14th until you tell me to stop. Your friend always, Ethan Miller, Director of Risk Management." Ethan was 39 years old, sharp as a tack, and treated my invoices like love letters. And Victor? Last I heard, he was interviewing for part-time security jobs at the local mall. At 62, with the word "terminated for cause" on his record, nobody in the industry would touch him with a 10-foot pole. And every single year since then, on the anniversary of the fire, I get a quiet little ping on my phone. A deposit notification. The final interest payment from that settlement trickling into the Westbridge account. $4.8 million that Victor never touched, never saw, and best of all, never got credit for saving. That, my darlings, is what victory feels like when it's 31 years in the making. But we're not quite finished. Because there's one final scene I need you to picture. The one that still makes me tear up every time I tell this story. It's the moment I realize revenge doesn't always wear horns and carry a pitchfork. Sometimes it just looks like peace, and flowers, and knowing you did the right thing when nobody was watching. You know what nobody tells you about the best revenge stories? The part that comes after the fireworks. The part where the smoke clears, the dust settles, and you wake up one Tuesday morning and realize you're happy. Not triumphant. Not gloating. Just quietly, deeply happy. That's what these last 8 years have been for me. Every February 14th the roses still arrive, 3 dozen blood red. No card needed anymore. Ethan just writes still grateful on the enclosure, and I smile like a fool for the rest of the day. Westbridge doubled my retainer, then doubled it again. They put me on a standing monthly stipend so I never have to send another invoice. The CFO told me once, half laughing, "We're terrified of the day you retire, Maggie. Promise you'll give us 5 years' notice so we can build a statue." I still drive past that empty lot where the building used to stand. It's a park now, little walking paths, benches. A plaque that says, "Donated by Westbridge Holdings in appreciation of second chances." Every time I see it I think of Victor's face in that elevator, and I don't feel anger anymore. I just feel tired for him. Tired the way you feel for someone who spent 62 years building a house of cards and then lit the match himself. People ask me all the time, "Maggie, do you ever think about him? Do you ever wonder what happened?" And the honest answer is, only when I need to remember why I still get up and fight for every client who's too scared or too proud to fight for themselves. Because Victor didn't just lose a job that day. He lost the story he told himself about who he was. Turns out that story was the only thing holding him together. Me? I got a better story. I got the late-night phone calls from junior associates who say, "My client's trying to throw me under the bus. What do I do?" And I get to tell them about Harry Whitaker's 3 rules, and about the Thursday afternoon I broke every other rule to keep the only one that ever mattered. I got the plaque on my desk. I got the park bench with my name on it. I got 8 years of roses and twice-a-year lunches with Ethan where we laugh about the old days and never once say Victor's name out loud. And most of all, I got the quiet certainty that when my own clock runs out, whenever that may be, I'll be able to look Harry Whitaker in the eye and say, "I protected myself first so I could protect everyone else second." That's the part they don't put in the revenge movies. The part where getting even stops feeling sharp and pointy and starts feeling like grace. So if you're sitting there tonight, 65, 70, 80, whatever age you are, feeling like the world has counted you out, dismissed you, patronized you one too many times, I want you to hear this in your bones. Your best chapter might still be unwritten. Your quietest act of courage might be the one that saves somebody years from now. And the sweetest revenge of all might just be waking up every morning knowing you chose integrity when nobody was watching, and then getting to live in the peace that choice bought you. Victor thought he was teaching me a lesson about who held the power. Turns out I was the one teaching the lesson. He just paid the tuition. We've got one final stop on this journey, my darlings. A short one. Just me, you, and the screen door creaking shut on a story that finally gets to rest. I'm 64 now. The silver in my hair has won the war, and most mornings my knees remind me they've earned the right to complain. But every single day I walk into my office, I pass that walnut plaque, smell the ghost of Ethan's roses, and I feel exactly the same thing I felt the day the chairman handed me that champagne flute. Proud, whole, and deeply, deliciously even. So here's the last little piece I need you to take with you when the screen goes dark tonight. If you're over 60 or 70 or 80 or 90, and somebody in your life has ever patted you on the head and said, "Relax, old-timer, I've got this," or "Don't worry your pretty little head," or "We'll handle it, you just sit this one out," I want you to remember Maggie Callahan on a Thursday afternoon in April, standing alone at a courthouse counter, heart hammering, filing a lawsuit she wasn't supposed to file, because she knew something the room full of men never bothered to learn. Age doesn't make you irrelevant. Experience doesn't make you obsolete. And wisdom, real wisdom, is the quietest, most lethal weapon on earth. Victor Langford thought he was the smartest man in every room he ever walked into. Turns out the smartest person in the room was the silver-haired lady he kept calling sweetheart. And the final, most beautiful irony? He never got to watch the money roll in. He never got the plaque. He never got the roses. He never got to hear the chairman say thank you. But I did. And every single person who ever doubted me got to watch me get it. So if this story gave you even one spark of fire in your chest tonight, do me a favor. Hold on to that spark. Water it. Feed it. Because one day, maybe tomorrow, maybe 10 years from now, somebody's going to try to count you out. And you are going to smile real slow the way I smiled the day I hit send on that last email. And you are going to remind them gently, politely, and completely, "Honey, I was saving the world before you were born. Watch me do it again. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for every tear, every gasp, every fist pump in the dark." If this story made you feel seen, heard, and a little bit dangerous in the best possible way, go ahead and hit that like button one last time. Leave me a comment that simply says, "I needed this," and share it with one friend who's been underestimated lately. And of course, subscribe, ring the bell, because next week we've got another long, slow, delicious one waiting, this time about a widow, a crooked car dealership owner, and the sweetest $400,000 payback you'll ever witness. Until then, this is Maggie Callahan reminding you, getting older isn't the same as getting weaker. Sometimes it just means you finally have the courage to stop being nice when nice isn't what the moment calls for. I love every single one of you. Now go out there and be magnificent. Good night.